Wednesday, October the 14th. Lake level is about 913 and a half, which is about 3.5 foot below normal pool. Water temperature is actually cooling down quite a bit. It was like 68 degrees this morning, got up to about 73 degrees. So that water temperature is starting to cool down, getting a little bit more fall pattern. Before I get into the fishing, being a Cardinal fan, I hate to congratulate the Cubs, but they did good. They whooped us, and good luck to them in the rest of the playoffs, and also to the Kansas City Royals. But fishing's been pretty good. Last 3 days I've had the same guys. My buddies from Michigan, I've got them the rest of the week, and I think we had 11 keepers today, 8 yesterday, and 8 the day before. We're not catching a lot of short fish. We are catching some pretty decent quality fish. And I'm sure by now, everybody's hearing about the whopper plopper. And that's still what we're catching our better fish on. Here's one here. This is a blue moon. And, basically the back part of the bait just spins. It's like fishing a buzz bait. And it's a bait that, we started throwing last year. And it seemed like it worked a little bit better on like Lake of the Ozarks, places that had stain. And this year, Table Rock's got a little bit of off color from one end to the next. I think you can catch a lot of these same fish on like a Czar spook or a different topwater. But the deal with this is you can cover so much more water faster than you can with a spook. And a lot of times you got to cover a ton of water. The crazy thing about this is our best bite has been 10:30, 11 o'clock on throughout the day when there's not a cloud in the sky. And most of these fish that we've been catching on this are dead shallow. I mean, we're setting the boat in about 8 to 10 foot, kind of 45-degree angle to the bank, and just covering tons of water. I wish I could tell you it's on main lake point or secondary point or a certain type of rock. The only thing we've been able to figure out as far as the pattern is that there is no pattern. You got to keep the trolling motor down and cover tons of water. And we have got more fish on it on flatter banks, with gravel, with some ledge rock mixed in. But as soon as I say that, we get around the corner of a cove, all of a sudden we'll get big broken rock and we'll catch one there. Kind of what I've been doing is putting the trolling motor down and fishing a whole pocket. It might be 3/8, half mile. Now, there's a couple other ways we've been catching them. In the morning, still been catching them on a wiggle wart and a Spro rock crawler. The old wiggle wart, Phantom Green is working well. This Spro here has been working well, crawdad patterns. And we're catching some tube fish in the same areas. Now this bite seems to be pretty good up to about 8:30 or so. And we're fishing secondary points, some main lake points with mixed rock on it. If you got wind, that's even better. And even with the wood chop, or not the wood chopper, the whopper flopper, the wind does seem to make a difference. If you don't have any wind, try to find a little wind and try to fish the banks that have wind on it. Most of the fish on the whopper flopper have been either largemouths or smallmouths. We're catching a few Kentuckys, but majority have been largemouth, anywhere from probably 2 to 5 foot of water most of the fish are coming from. And it kind of goes against the grain of everything that you learn about topwater. Like I said, there hadn't been a cloud in the sky when it works the best. And you can look down there where you catch the fish and you won't see a stump, you won't see a brush pile. What I think they're relating to is you will see big gizzard shad in the areas where you're catching fish. And also every once in a while on these you'll also catch like a little warmouth or black perch. I think they're up there feeding on the real little bait. The bass are feeding on some of them bluegill, and they're also feeding on them big gizzard shad. Now, I've been catching them on other things as well. This thing kind of reminds me of like an Alabama rig. I'm throwing it on a 7-2. It's a finesse jig rod, but I'm throwing it on a 50-pound braid. You can throw the thing a mile and just kind of change up your speed. You can reel it real fast or fairly slow, just whatever it takes to get a bite. And another thing that'll work in the same area, you can still throw a buzz bait in the same area. And there's a little buzz bait one of the guys with me's been throwing. I think it's called a buzz jet. It's like an inline buzz bait with a black frog on the back. If If you're having trouble throwing a regular buzzbait, take the skirt off and put like a Zoom horny toad on the back. You'll be able to cast the thing twice as far as you can with that. Seems to work, just as well. But in the mornings, like I say, the wigglewort, the spro bite, and also a little green pumpkin tube on a 1/4 ounce head, or watermelon red will work as well. And we're fishing this thing set in the boat in about 18 to 20 foot, just like if you was throwing the crankbait, working it on the same tight banks that you're catching the crankbait fish on. Now, after about 8:30 or 9 o'clock, that bite really slows down. It seems to be a lot more littler fish that we're catching on the tube. But if you stay with it, you can continue to catch fish. Now, we've had about 10, 12 rods on the deck, and what we've been doing, an area that looks good to throw the whopper plopper, we'll fish it. We can buy a deep dock. We'll try I've been throwing a 5/8 ounce pig sticker jig with a Strike King Rage Craw on it. Same thing I've kind of thrown all summer. But we're throwing it in these docks where it's anywhere from 25 to 35 feet deep. I'm throwing the jig. Then when I get out a little deeper from that 35 to 50, we've been flipping a white spoon in the stalls, either a 3/4 ounce white Dixie Jet or just a 3/4 ounce or 7/8 ounce slap spoon. Basically pitching it in the stalls, watching the line as it's going down. Depending on how deep it is, sometimes we'll fish it right to the bottom. Other times we'll give it about a 20 count and just jerk it back and forth, to the boat. On some of them same docks out in front, I've been able to catch some fish drop shotting out off the cables. If you find the cables out there off the front of the dock, in about 30 foot of water, you may be setting in 60, but there'll be a bunch of algae. You can see them on your electronics, and there's been some drop shot fish around them docks as well. Now, usually on them docks, I try to just key on the shaded side of them. Now, I did have a little bit of a jig bite going on some shallow docks, but, with like a 3/8 ounce finesse jig. But that hasn't panned out for me the last few days. It seems like a lot of them fish have left me. And the only dock bite I can get is a fairly deep. And what I'm looking for is a dock that sticks way out where the channel comes up against it. And preferably something that's got 40 to at least 60 foot out there at the ends of the stalls. Now, you'll find that whenever you find a dock that works, it'll pretty much consistently hold fish. But you got to fish a lot of them to find some that have got fish on them. Now, as far as the drop shot out on the main lake flat gravel points, I haven't been able to find any concentration of fish. If I find a single fish out over a deep tree, I can usually catch that fish. But as far as catching numbers of them, I'm catching more numbers, on the drop shot and spoonfish around the deeper docks. But the numbers of, the better quality fish, without a doubt, have been coming on the whopper plopper. And I think they've got them in stock up there at Sportsman Factory Outlet. I know one of my customers went into Bass Pro the other day and they had got a bunch in, but they were out. So it's not only working here, I know it's working at Kentucky Lake. The guys that are down there fishing that BFL Regional been down there catching on that as well. And like I said, it kind of reminds me of an Alabama rig, because to me, an Alabama rig, sometimes you can throw it 2-3 hours without a bite. That whopper plopper is the same way, but when you get a bite on it, it's usually a good quality fish. So with this water temperature starting to cool down, it should bring that crankbait bite back, get it a little better, and also, get a spinnerbait bite going, get some more fish to the bank. So until next week, good luck, good fishing.